half, and you think that's going to be a try. So credit Ollie Ashall-Bott, even though there was a bit of mix up between what they wanted to do with the Wigan guys. But yeah, Abbas Express, mentioned a few times, took his tries well, 4 tries. You've got to say that's a strong performance. They didn't take much finishing, if I'm honest, his own tries, but it was reward for some of the exits that carries he was making ground on. So he did hard work and then got the rewards at the other end with some great passing from French, even some skills in the centre from Willie Isa. KPP was back in for Wigan. That's a positive. Bateman didn't play and Farrell barely played. So clearly Pete wanted to rest his England players. And actually, I think the whole Wigan team took a rest in the second half because I felt like Wigan left points out there in this game. The try they conceded was soft as anything. But the game was well won at half time. And I guess it's hard to maintain your intensity when there is a concept of some players are being rested here anyway.
Yeah, when I was live, I was watching, obviously, the other game we're about to talk about, and, seeing the score, and just every time it just popped up another 14 points were on the board, and you're like, okay, that one's over. And then it sort of slowed up, so I hadn't known what happened until we kind of looked back at it. But, they were just in total control. I mean, do you want to talk about Toulouse? Obviously on the playing field, I think they've been brave in some games, but this one they just weren't.
Yeah, this was the poorest I've seen them be in the matches I've watched of theirs. But I just think they weren't at the races. But I don't think they threw a lot into this game. I think they've got a big month coming up with consecutive games against bottom half sides that I think they'll be targeting. And it was kind of like try and get through this one with no injuries. And I think they did. It's not great, but again, it wasn't a game that any of their fans were seeing. So, and it's not a game that they were expected to win. So I'm not saying they threw it, but they certainly didn't have the right attitude in this one, not compared to what I've seen from them in other games. The only blip for Wigan was Cade Ellis picked up an injury, he went off, didn't come back on. But Wigan weren't fearful enough to get Liam Farrell back on the pitch or anything like that when he was wrapped up. So it seems like it's not as bad as it first looked live, his leg injury. So that's a positive from the only real negative for Wigan. And I think for Toulouse, the positive is that they got through the game without any apparent injuries. It's another game in the legs for some of their players that they brought in, like Norman and Alvaro, and so another chance to get some comment. I think it was the first time Norman and Gigo have played together. So, it has been confirmed, by the way. There's a lot of rumour over the weekend, speculation that Gadwin Springer's left Toulouse with immediate effect. That's been confirmed. I'm not really sure what's gone on there, but he's clearly had a bit of a fallout at the club, not getting the game time he wanted, possibly, or something or other. But in a way, if he was a bad egg, then they've got him out and they can focus on what they have got left. I don't know, but it's not good for them to lose a forward who only played 4 or 5 times this year, but had a couple of good games within that. So, I don't know that there's much more to say about Toulouse on this game, though. I don't think this is the game to talk about Toulouse or even Wigan, if I'm honest, David.
There's not much in this. It was a pretty standard, they didn't get a second gear, and then they just basically, they ran over them pretty easy, and then they just coasted to the end. So, not much.
The one time we did get out a second gear was probably the Bevan French try. It got him to play with Marshall down the left side. That took it to 28-0. That was immediately after Miskie's second, I think. So on the next set. So that was it then. Game was over. It was 35 minutes in or whatever it was, 30 minutes in, game was over. And but well done to Wigan, and Toulouse need to improve. Okay, let's move on to a game where I think everyone needs to improve and talk about the Friday night televised game. I'm sure this had you throwing up your breakfast. We'll talk about Warrington versus Hull FC. It was Warrington 4, Hull FC 0. at the Halliwell Jones. It was 0-0 at half time, so you could argue things got better in the second half. I'm not convinced they did. 8,591 were there. James Child was the referee. In terms of the stat stories, fewest tries, but most carries of any game so far this year. And both sides made over 1,400 metres. So that suggests there was effort there. Hull made slightly more metres, but Warrington made their metres at a slightly better average gain. Wire had 2 breaks, Hull had none, but Hull had more successful offloads. Wire made an extra error, but Hull gave up 2 more penalties. Hull fell below 90% in team tackle success rate. So up and down on the stats, probably on balance, say Warrington were the winning side, and that came to pass. But what about individually? Did anyone stand out from, in a way, on numbers that wasn't on pictures?
Well, let's have a look. For the Wire, it was George Williams with 146 metres, Darryl Clark with 59 tackles, 13 marker tackles, Josh Thewlis with 10 tackle breaks, 129 metres, Ollie Holmes with 47 tackles. For Hull, it was Jamie Shaw with 5 tackle breaks, 160 metres, Danny Houghton, 45 tackles, 10 marker tackles, 107 metres, Lee Sow with 42 tackles, 119 metres, and Mano Mao with 118 metres.
Yeah, Jamie Shaw, I wasn't surprised by those numbers because he kept looking like he was running. It was like a great example of someone putting in all the effort and having no end product. I felt sorry for him. Always in Our Shadow said, the perfect advert for Rugby League, totally dire at the wire. We might have an episode title. Even it's pretty low hanging fruit, but a decent side would have scored 30 against both teams. Wire's class backs, Widdop, Williams, and Ratchford couldn't muster a try between them. Hull, with no creativity, had 2 half chances, and that was it. Why go for the 2 with McIntosh confidence shot and McIntosh's confidence shot and FC showing modicum at that point, or a modicum of like attacking endeavour, I guess it means. Do you know, it's talked about the backs and he's mentioned Widdop, Williams and Ratchford. What I enjoyed was why his attack was so non-existent that it took until the start of the second half for the Sky commentators to pick up on the fact that Ratchford had played the entire game at left centre. And Matautia had been in the half at standoff, but the fact that there was no attack meant they'd not even noticed, really. Anyway,
well,
who's next?
So it's B. Dawson 1902. I'm not even bothered about losing that. I just want my 2 hours back. 2 absolutely horrendous sides, but it goes to show how good Connor is, that we're one of the best attacks in the league when he's on the pitch. Stats back it up. He's a miracle worker.
Yeah. Doc House Dave said, I said when Warrington lost their previous game, they desperately need to sort their defence and start from there. Well, they did that in a trialist game. Something for them to build from. Needs to be ugly, but build from there.
Oh, I get to do AFC 78JU.
Yep.
Take a deep breath. First half was so boring that I couldn't barely stand up and watch any of it. Wow, having me read this is terrible. Any of it, but just about done in the end. At least we defended and not conceded once, and 2 we didn't lose as we got Steph Ratchett to kick us to the win in the second half and get us away from the survival battle. To lose a defo down now for me. Well played, Wire. We actually won a game and defended our own lines. Same again on the 3rd of July.
Yeah, Esther said, we tried really hard and tackled good, but we made too many stupid errors and dropped balls. If only Gale had dived for the knee and not Widdop's knee. Shaw was our best and Sow had a big effort. Yeah, injuries were a factor, weren't they? And Gale's injury came on that very nearly try dive that he made for the line, and he kind of got caught in the head, but he already, I think, knocked on as well in the process, and it didn't come out. And that in a way that kind of summed up Hull FC without Jake Connor. That 20 seconds.
Oh, for sure. I've got some notes on this one. I didn't actually put a review in, but my review will be talking on here, obviously. But I had some. Yeah, we'll get to it in a sec. I'll do Joshua's granddad's one, and we'll get to it at the end.
Yep.
A long way to go for so little skill from either side. Possibly worst game. I think I'm seeing a trend here. Possibly worst game seen in many years. Defensive effort was there, but so many basic errors. No leadership viable. No on field, no flair, no creativity.
And I tell you what, John has a great memory for all them. Given the amount of matches he's been to in his life, he has a great memory for the matches he's been to. So I put a great deal of weight in John saying that is possibly the worst game he's seen, because that guy has watched a lot of games and remembers most of them. Lee Whitnell said, like watching two virgins trying to fuck. The desire was there, the holes were there, but the approach was too fumbling and the thrust too floppy. In the end, Wire went for two cheeky fingers and called it a day. A flaccid affair.
That could be an episode titled too, A Flaccid Affair. Pop of the Viking, an absolute awful game. That's
nice. Excellent. Rich Owen said, nervy performance from the Wire in one of the most uneventful games you'll see. On the bright side, the defence was much improved and a win's a win. On to Salford on Sunday, where hopefully we'll see more of the same from a defensive point of view, with some better attacking play and fewer errors to get 2 points needed to keep climbing the league. I'm really not sure how the Super League website got a 4-minute highlight package up for this game.
This was an absolute bludger of a game. Like, one of the worst. Sorry, my phone just fell out of its cradle. Give me a second, Mark. Sorry.
It's all right. I'm keeping that in.
Just bear with me. Oh, come on, stay there. Okay, all right. Yeah, I don't know how you get any highlights out of this game. Look, I've got a couple of notes of my own, and some things that people didn't say either. So, first one was, so when Swift was injured, you could see he was injured. You could very obviously see it. I mean, Warrington knew he was. And that whole time, they did not send anything his way. He was on the field for at least 2 or 3 minutes, hobbling. He couldn't even
I
think
it was more like 5, and he made one tackle in that entire time.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I've just looked at it and just gone, you know, the fact that they couldn't see it and the fact they couldn't even target him just shows how little creativity that's happening in those halves, how little, you know, they were thinking about it.
Yeah, how they lack clarity of thought.
They really just do. I mean, there was some really poor dummy half pass. A 20. Okay, so this is basically what got it for me. So there was a poor pass, a shit kick, and then a high tackle. Like Warrington just. I just don't understand. Like they just, nothing they did made any sense. And I mean, Hull was lacking polish, but they won the middle. They were better. I felt like they were better getting up the other end. And then, I mean, you could tell both teams made a lot of meters, because there was points there where the teams were in position, looked like they could do something, but they just had no attack. So I find the comment about, you know, it looked like two virgins probably pretty apt, because they looked like neither of them knew how to score points.
Yeah. Like, you saw some decent running from some of the Warrington creative players. I think George Williams' numbers back that up. I thought Darryl Clark looked lively at times out of dummy half. But none of it then was joined up with a support runner or a passing move or anything like that. And similarly for Hull FC, Jamie Shaw, I thought, was really busy, really good. Some of the forwards had some good impact, but there was mitigation for Hull FC in that, like, they were left with young Jacob Hookham coming on and Joe Lovadua on the field, who's not really a half, and then the other's a kid. And maybe this shows the depth of the problem at Hull, because the fans have been saying, why don't we play Hookham? Well, maybe throwing him into a game that he wasn't necessarily fully prepared for, I don't know, but isn't ideal. But at the same time, he didn't say play me next week. Hopefully he gets a week of training and then shows what he can do, because he can do stuff. This kid has got a bit of spark about him. But like, both sides are asking too many questions of themselves around those spine positions, particularly with Connor's injury at Hull, and then what they're doing at Warrington. 1, 6, and 7 both sides is a mess, a real mess, and that was borne out by this scoreline. Maybe Warrington came closest to scoring in a way because they had the forward pass. It was forward, but it wasn't a mile forward. We've seen those given, in fact, in other games this weekend. Maybe they were closest.
Well, I've got written down forward pass question mark.